He wasn't speeding. He wasn't breaking the law. Just a quiet drive home after a long day. But the flashing lights in his rearview mirror told a different story, one he'd seen before, but never thought would happen to him. The officer's eyes were cold, his voice sharp, dripping with assumptions. In seconds, the stop turned from routine to dangerous. What the officer didn't know was that the man in front of him wasn't just any driver, and the truth about who he really was would change everything. The evening had been calm. Marcus Daniels, a well-respected investigator with internal affairs, had just wrapped up another exhausting day at the precinct. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in streaks of gold and crimson as he steered his black sedan through the quiet streets of his neighborhood. Music played softly from the radio, a rare moment of peace in a job filled with confrontation. He wasn't wearing his badge. Off-duty, he preferred to blend in, to be just another face in the crowd. His neighbors knew him as the man who always waved, the one who offered to carry groceries for the elderly woman across the street. Tonight, his only plan was to get home, heat up leftovers, and maybe call his sister to check in. As he passed a dimly lit intersection, headlights appeared in his rearview mirror. At first, it was just another car on the road. But within seconds, red and blue lights ignited, cutting through the dusk. Marcus's brow furrowed. He knew the law, knew his rights, and more importantly, knew he hadn't done anything wrong. Yet, something in the pit of his stomach told him this stop wouldn't be about a broken taillight or a rolling stop. It would be about something else entirely. And as the patrol car closed the distance, its engine growling, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his quiet evening was about to unravel into something far more dangerous. Marcus slowed his car, easing it toward the curb. The flashing lights grew brighter in his mirrors, each pulse hammering against his chest. He shifted into park and took a slow breath, his hands resting firmly on the steering wheel, fingers spread, palms visible. Years in law enforcement had taught him one thing: never give anyone an excuse. The cruiser rolled to a stop behind him. A door slammed. Footsteps crunched against the pavement, deliberate and heavy. In his side mirror, Marcus caught a glimpse of the officer, mid-40s, tall, pale, his jaw tight with purpose. His hand rested close to his holster. The gesture casual enough to be denied, but intentional enough to be felt. "License and registration," the officer said sharply before even reaching the driver's window. His eyes scanned Marcus like he was cataloging a suspect, not addressing a citizen. Marcus kept his voice calm. "Sure, officer. May I ask what this is about?" "You'll find out soon enough. Hands where I can see them." The tone wasn't just authoritative. It was laced with something colder. Marcus had heard that tone before in other cases he'd investigated. It was the sound of someone who had already decided guilt before hearing a word of defense. As Marcus reached for his wallet, the officer took a half step back, his fingers brushing the grip of his weapon. The air between them thickened. "Where you headed tonight?" the officer asked, his voice cutting through the dark. "Home," Marcus replied evenly. "From where?" "Work." "What kind of work?" Marcus paused. He could have said law enforcement right there, could have flashed his badge, ended this before it went any further. But something in him hesitated. The same instinct that told him to let the truth come out on its own. The officer leaned in slightly, peering into the car as if searching for contraband. "Mind stepping out of the vehicle?" Marcus's heartbeat picked up. He knew his rights. He knew the protocol. But he also knew what could happen to black men during traffic stops that spiraled out of control. The night was quiet except for the hum of the cruiser's engine and the faint buzz of the street lamp overhead. As he opened the door and stepped into the cool night air, Marcus noticed a second cruiser pulling up behind the first. Two more officers emerged, their expressions unreadable. Whatever this was, it was no longer just a routine stop. It was an escalation. And Marcus knew that the next few minutes could decide whether he made it home alive. The cool night air felt heavier now, pressing in from all sides. Marcus stood still, his hands visible, while the lead officer circled him like a predator gauging its next move. The other two officers positioned themselves, just far enough away to form a triangle, a formation Marcus recognized all too well. It was containment. "You been drinking tonight?" the lead officer asked. "No," Marcus replied. The officer's gaze hardened. You fit the description of someone we're looking for. Black male, late 30s, driving a dark sedan. Marcus's pulse quickened, but he kept his face unreadable. Description was a word he'd heard countless times in complaint reports. Vague enough to justify anything, dangerous enough to destroy lives. Turn around. Hands on the hood, the officer ordered. Marcus didn't move right away. His instincts screamed to speak up, to assert his rights. But the tension in the officer's posture, the twitch in his fingers near the holster. They told him one wrong move could turn this scene into another viral tragedy. Reluctantly, Marcus placed his hands on the hood. The metal was still warm from the engine. The officer began a quick, rough pat-down, his movements more about intimidation than procedure. As the search continued, the beam of a flashlight caught something glinting at Marcus's waistband, his badge, clipped discreetly under his jacket. "What's this?" the officer asked sharply, yanking it free. Marcus turned his head just enough to meet his eyes. "That's my badge. Internal affairs." The words hit the air like a crack of thunder. The officer's grip loosened instantly. His confident stance faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. The other two officers froze mid-step, exchanging uncertain glances. In that moment, the balance of power shifted. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The look in his eyes said it all. "You've just stopped the wrong man." The lead officer stepped back, his hand falling completely away from his holster. The badge in his palm suddenly felt heavier, as if it carried the weight of every mistake he had just made. Marcus straightened slowly, his calm demeanor unchanged, but his eyes locked on the man in front of him. "Now," he said quietly, "do you want to explain why I was stopped?" The officer's lips parted, but no words came. The others shifted uncomfortably, their earlier confidence evaporating in the silence. Marcus didn't push further. He knew the report. He would file tomorrow would speak louder than anything said here tonight. He took his badge back, tucking it into place, and returned to his car. The flashing lights dimmed as the cruisers pulled away, one after the other, leaving the street once again in darkness. But the night didn't feel the same anymore. As Marcus drove home, the quiet of the road was a stark contrast to the storm inside his mind. He had power tonight, power that kept him alive, but he couldn't stop thinking about the countless others who didn't. People without a badge, without a title, without the leverage to turn fear into regret. He made it home, but the encounter replayed in his mind like a warning. This wasn't just one stop on one night. It was a reflection of a deeper, unshakable reality. And as he sat in his driveway, engine off, the question settled heavy in his chest. How many more lives will be put at risk before the lights in the rear view? Mirror stop, meaning danger for men who look like me?